It's 2:23 a.m. Three Plywood Ukrainian naval drones race at 180 kilometers per hour across Russian-controlled waters toward a ship that has quietly mapped 6 weeks of Ukrainian strikes. In 2 minutes, one hit will wipe out its database, and almost nothing will go as planned. This ship sat 15 miles off Novorossiysk, listening to everything: launch patterns, timing, recording it all to feed a database that, within days, could predict every strike before it even happened. The Russians thought they had control. They had no idea. Here's how 3 Plywood drones, built cheaper than a used car, outfoxed radars, helicopters, and Russian patrol boats worth millions to carry out one of the most surgical strikes of the entire Black Sea campaign. And the wild part? Almost nothing went according to plan. Here's the situation. This Russian spy ship had been operating off Novorossiysk since early September 2024. Stationary, its R-381T, listening antennas pointed at the Ukrainian coast. For 6 straight weeks, it cataloged everything: drone launches, radio frequencies, rhythms, the whole playbook. A few more days, and it could have predicted the strikes before Ukraine even refueled. Ukrainian intelligence knew exactly where it was, and knew it had to disappear. The 3 FP-1 drones launched shortly after 2 a.m. were not conventional kit. Plywood frames, off-the-shelf engines, basic autopilots. Their radar cross-section was smaller than a seagull's because there was hardly any metal. For systems built to track aluminum airframes, these things are practically invisible. 20 minutes after launch, a Russian 4-post R reconnaissance drone appears on its standard patrol arc, about 30 kilometers off the Ukrainian coast. Its Canadian MX-15 camera can spot a basketball at 5 kilometers, and its thermal mode detects temperature differences as small as 2 degrees Celsius. At 2:45 a.m., the lead drone's engine heat signature climbs onto the 4-post's screen. The operator zooms to figure out what he's seeing. 3 small contacts, low altitude, heading east at 180 kilometers per hour. The pre-programmed evasion kicks in. The drones drop to 2 meters above the water and disappear into what radar operators call ground clutter, the chaotic sea returns that hide very low-flying objects. That's where Plywood changes everything. In minutes, the structures cool to the temperature of the sea. To the 4-post's thermal camera, they vanish. The operator logs them as possible birds and continues his patrol. He's just let the opening move of an attack slip past, an attack he will never see coming. Behind the drones, the reason for the rushed launch becomes clear. Russian Shaheds have found the launch site and arrive minutes after the FP-1s depart. The operators barely escape before 50-kilogram warheads turn the gear into scrap. The spy ship's intelligence network was already working, not fast enough to stop what's coming, but fast enough to hit back. At 3:30 a.m., while the FP-1s cut across the Black Sea, 20 Ukrainian naval drones head toward Sevastopol at 80 kilometers per hour. What happens next forces Russia to leave its most valuable asset completely unprotected. That cloud of decoys, modified jet skis, and cheap civilian boats with basic guidance, each cost under $10,000. Throwaway craft designed to look, on radar, like Magura VE-5 naval drones. They held formation, transmitted the right radio cues, and advanced at attack speed. To Russian radar operators, it looked like the biggest naval drone offensive since October 2022. Building a credible decoy takes more than sending boats at a target. You have to mimic realistic attack patterns, deploy into assault formations, converge on plausible objectives, even execute evasive maneuvers. Ukrainian operators controlled them by satellite for the first 50 kilometers, then switched to autopilot. Each drone transmitted on frequencies they knew Russian signals intelligence monitored. Some carried heat sources to imitate the infrared signature of armed drones. The Russian admiral had 6 Ka-27PL helicopters at Novorossiysk and 4 at Sevastopol. These helicopters are the Black Sea Fleet's primary defense against naval drones. Ships are too slow to chase them, and fighters can't loiter to search. Helicopters can cover 100 kilometers in 20 minutes, drop anti-submarine grenades that neutralize anything within 50 meters, and use dipping sonar to hunt underwater drones. Without them, the approaches to Novorossiysk are wide open. Russian doctrine says, answer the visible threat first. So the 6 helicopters at Novorossiysk launch westbound at 270 kilometers per hour. The distinctive rotor thump fades as they sprint toward the decoys. Every minute west is another minute the real drones run east unopposed. By the time they realize it's a ruse, they'll be 360 kilometers from the critical zone. The spy ship, 15 miles off Novorossiysk, is now without air cover, without a quick reaction force, without a way to cue helicopters to verify contacts. For the next 2 hours, any drone that slips past the patrol boat's screen will have a clean run. The 3 FP-1s adjust 15 degrees north. They're exploiting a discovery made after months of observation. The Russians had 2 Podlet K-1 radars covering this sector, each rotating exactly 10 times per minute. Picture 2 spotlight beams sweeping in a circle. 4 seconds per minute. Both point elsewhere, leaving a blind spot. That gap was a 2-kilometer corridor the drones had to hit with millimeter precision. But the Russians had adapted. Random desynchronization killed predictable dead zones. The corridor was shrinking. First drone at 4:47 a.m. 4 seconds invisible, 2 seconds visible as 1 radar sweeps, then back into shadow. The radar operator sees a fleeting contact, something small and fast. The second follows 30 seconds behind, still on course, still invisible, tanks full. The third has a problem. A microscopic flaw in the autopilot gyroscope is pushing it right, 200 meters, and growing. At 4:48 a.m., operators receive the order, random rotations. The third swings sharply north, burning precious fuel. It hits the narrowing corridor at 4:49 a.m. Both radars paint it clearly. Contact bearing 270, speed 180, altitude 50 meters. The operator has 20 confirmed targets over Sevastopol and a doubtful blip here. He tags it probable bird and returns to the fake assault. The third is through, but the maneuver burned 12 minutes of fuel. It will reach the target zone with less than a minute of endurance. The spy ship holds position 15 miles off Novorossiysk. Despite the diversion, its mission comes first. 2 Project 03160 patrol boats form a protective screen, running 5-kilometer circles. Standard doctrine since the loss of Moskva. The ship's radar sees threats the boats don't, and quarterbacks them into position. At 5 a.m., the decoy fleet plays its final act. As the Russian helicopters reach engagement range, the 20 drones scatter. Some beach on empty shorelines, others spin in place until dry, a few simply stop. None attempt to hit real targets. Their job is done. The helicopters spend another hour chasing stragglers, burning fuel, wasting munitions on drones that cost less than a single anti-submarine grenade. When they turn back, they're 180 kilometers from Novorossiysk with half their fuel. The real attack is closing in, but visibility is dropping as the morning fog thickens. At 6 a.m., the lead FP-1 is 240 kilometers from the target when its GPS position begins to drift east. The drone isn't turning, the world is. The Russians have activated their R-330ZHT system from Crimea. This isn't mere jamming, it's whispered lies. False GPS signals blasted at 100 watts against the satellite's 10 microwatt whisper. The Russians have perfected the trick of walking drones into the ground. Now they're walking the FP-1 into a Panzer battery. But the Ukrainian operators have learned too. Every 50 kilometers, oil platforms dot the Black Sea. The FP-1's crude cameras can spot them at 5 kilometers and snap the position back to reality using preloaded coordinates. No fake signal beats the old method. The human eye, Mark 1 Mod 0. The second drone never reaches the next platform. At 6:15 a.m., its GPS receiver dies. Not from jamming, but from a cheap Chinese capacitor that can't handle temperature cycling. Without GPS, it flips to inertial navigation. But over water, the error grows 10 meters per minute. 8 kilometers of drift later, it runs into nothing. At 6:45, it hits the sea. No explosion, just gone. 2 drones remain. The third is 5 kilometers behind, with clean GPS, for now. The Russian ship goes active. Its mineral ME radar starts sweeping the western approaches. The electronic warfare team is working too. Every electronic device produces harmonics, ghost frequencies when circuits resonate. That's what they're hunting. At 7:23 a.m., they find one. Bearing 285, speed 180, range 15 kilometers. The ship's radar locks. The lead drone's rudimentary threat alert registers the lock, but wood confuses a radar built for metal. Minerals algorithms look for crisp aluminum returns. Wood comes back as soft, inconsistent echoes. The radar keeps losing lock. Operator reports an intermittent contact, possibly birds. The third, FP1, makes a decision its simple programming allows. Detecting a radar ahead, it shuts down everything except the mechanical gyroscope and flies blind on the compass. Switching on this EW suite creates another problem. The R984UM jammers meant to protect against naval drones spew electromagnetic noise across many bands. They transmit between 20 and 1000 megahertz, right through the ship's own communications. Every emission degrades its radar returns. Russian doctrine has a name for it. Electromagnetic fratricide. Your own systems interfering with each other. A calculated risk, the manual says. They're about to learn the real cost. At 7:25 a.m., the ship sends a patrol boat to check the intermittent contacts. It accelerates to 35 knots, crew on the bow PKM. The gunner feeds a fresh 200-round belt, checks his sights, braces against the mount. His loader waits with 2 more belts. They've rehearsed this hundreds of times. Engage low targets at 500 meters, walk the tracers up to the mark, and fire until the splash. Standard procedure: identify, then engage if hostile. But they were briefed on aluminum drones with infrared signatures. No one mentioned ghosts made of plywood. The lead drone has 3 minutes of fuel left. Behind it, the third keeps coming, unseen but blind. The morning fog now caps visibility at 500 meters. At 7:30 a.m., the lead FP1 reaches the target area, 15 miles from Novorossiysk. The spy ship sits exactly where predicted, still queuing the patrol boats onto inbound threats. The ship has erected a radar barrier. 2 boats with overlapping positive ME1 coverage. Each radar covers 120 degrees and detects 0.1 square meter targets at 15 kilometers. Classic Soviet doctrine, built on a single assumption. Physics cooperates. The Black Sea disagrees. A temperature inversion forms. Warm air over cold water bends the radar beams upward like a prism. Nothing unusual for September. The water stays warm as the morning air cools fast. The density difference creates an atmospheric lens. Operators are trained for this, but the corrections assume standard conditions. This morning's inversion is severe. 10 degrees difference over just 50 meters of altitude. Beams bend 15 degrees. What looks like 50 meters on screen is actually 80. Anything flying below 30 meters is totally invisible. At 3 meters above the surface, the FP1 is basically a submarine. The lead drone closes at 7:32 a.m. The Russians are sweeping at a displayed 50-meter elevation, but their beams are actually at 80. The drone slips underneath. The patrol boat finally spots it with the naked eye at 500 meters. The drone's camera shows the patrol boat swelling in frame. 500 meters. A flash at the muzzle. 400 meters. The PKM's distinctive clatter rolls across the water, tracers walking the surface. 3 hits, clean holes in the wood. A round grazes the propeller. The engine shudders violently but keeps running. The drone exits small arms range with 90 seconds of fuel left. The third FP1 gets lucky. Guided only by its gyroscope, it holds course. It ghosts out of the mist at 7:34 a.m., approaching on the forward port quarter at 180 kilometers per hour, 10 meters above the water. The lead drone's engine finally seizes at 7:34, and it starts its final glide. The lead drone has done its job. Every Russian eye tracks its fall toward the water, while the real threat arrives unseen. The ship's navigation radar can't tilt below -5 degrees. The designers never imagined an attack from that angle. The patrol boats are out of position. The bridge team is scanning the wrong sector. Ukrainians relied on visual references. So do the Russians. A Russian lookout catches the third drone at 300 meters, but it's already too late. The drone's camera frames the top of the bridge, the mast housing the 3 special antennas. 25 kilograms hit the base of the mast. The blast rips open the bridge instantly. The R381T antennas that could hear a radio in Romania melt. The computers that held 6 weeks of profiles turn into metallic confetti. Secondary explosions ripple through the power supplies. When the fires burn out 18 hours later, the ship's electronics suite looks like a Salvador Dalí painting. 6 weeks of collection, dozens of launches logged, and patterns that could have ended Ukraine's drone war, all gone. The ship will sail again, but its electronic eyes and ears are permanently blind. Within hours, Ukrainian drones launch from new sites, with new patterns, back to invisible. The Russians can still hit launch areas, but they now hit empty fields because the models are gone.